So the government is back open. The debt ceiling crisis is over. What was this all about? So in theory, all this nonsense for the last few weeks has been about Republicans' principled stance against the greatest evil in the history of the world, Obamacare. And I have to say that the media, especially the liberal media, they do a terrible job of really dissecting what's going on here and talking about the utter intellectual fallacy that all of this is based on. A little history, ladies and gentlemen. Obamacare is based on a conservative idea that was born in the Heritage Foundation 20-some years ago that basically every major conservative thinker and politician endorsed until the moment Obama endorsed it. The idea is, rather than have a single-payer health care plan like all of our Western trading partners have, let's have something that gives a lot more money to insurance companies and gets them involved. So we can at least say that it's got a private sector angle to it. That's what the Heritage Foundation came up with as a way of countering all the Ted Kennedy healthcare proposals that have the government pay the bills. So that's where it came from. So this idea that conservatives have, that this idea that we've been championing for 20 years is now going to destroy the country just because Obama wants it, is silly. And that's the problem with the media. They have a hard time pointing out when one political party is just saying blatant lies, and that's the case here. Now, the next charge we hear constantly is this is socialism. This is like a Western European idea that Obama has. Well, no. Obama, frankly, would have been a lot happier. All the Democrats would have been a lot happier if there had been a single-payer socialistic plan, the way Medicare is, the way our Defense Department is funded. But they went with the Republican idea. Next, you hear that this Obamacare can't possibly work because it's never been tested. It turns out that's an unmitigated lie, too. It was tested in Massachusetts by a conservative, Mitt Romney. Tested it, was a huge success. More people got covered, more people had health care. Overall health went up, cost went down. It has, in fact, been tested. Mitt Romney was even campaigning on it for a while until that became politically incorrect in Republican circles. Next, there's this idea that this was an awful plan because it's 100% of what Obama wanted, and he rammed it down the throats of Congress and didn't get a single Republican vote. It is true he didn't get Republican votes, but the reason is every single time he gave them everything they wanted, they then changed the line and said, well, no, now that you've given us what we want, we're going to now say we want this, because really our goal is to just humiliate you and make sure nobody ever has health care. So this idea that somehow he didn't accommodate, and the whole thing is a Republican accommodation. No Democrat wants Obamacare. They want a single-payer health care plan. The whole thing is a Republican idea, and the idea that they then all voted against it after having endorsed it for 20 years just shows their real agenda is they don't want anybody to have health care who isn't rich. I mean, that's the real agenda. Okay, if you work for the military, then you deserve it. The next thing we hear about Obamacare is that it just costs so much money it's bankrupting the country. And all the research shows it saves us billions and billions of dollars. Then we hear that it's bad just categorically because it's a government takeover of the private sector health in our country, the whole health industry. It's just not true. For a long, long, long time, the vast majority of every healthcare dollar in America has been spent by government. The question is simply, how can you do it more efficiently? Obamacare is more efficient than what we currently have. It's not nearly as efficient as what Canada has, what England has, and all the other countries that have single payer. But it's not the government taking over a private sector. There isn't a healthcare sector controlled by the private sector in America. It is all being fueled by government spending. The question is simply, are you going to make it efficient or not? And Republicans have decided they don't really want it to be efficient. Otherwise, they'd have a single-payer health care plan. And you can argue that Obamacare is more efficient than what we have now, but when it comes to efficiency versus running up cheap attacks against a Democratic president, we know where Republicans stand. To heck with efficiency, to heck with saving money. Trashing a Democrat is always the most important thing. And by the way, this whole 2-week stunt cost the country $24 billion.